Good morning and welcome to the brief on eNCA. In collaboration with the Sunday Times, we bring you a fast-paced, in-depth look at the stories shaping your Sunday. Don't forget to scan the QR code above to dive deeper into today's headlines in your Sunday Times. I'm Jenna Lebilong. Let's get right into it. Our lead story this week is one that's gripped the nation. The shocking murder of prominent insolvency lawyer Boer van Niekerk. His killing has sent shockwaves through the legal and business communities. Now, van Niekerk was shot dead in what many believe was a targeted attack against those challenging criminal networks. He had previously worked on a case involving the Guptas and had spoken out about the unresolved murders of Babita Deokaran, Klute and Thomas Murray. We speak to Sunday Times Deputy Editor Mike Siluma as questions mount around the circumstances and possible motives. Mike, good morning. Welcome once again to eNCA. Very, very concerning here. On the one hand, we're having commissions of inquiry. People are being encouraged to speak out against corruption, blow the whistle. On the other hand, those who do are being murdered.
Yeah, I think that these kinds of murders, are just an indication of how deeply rooted criminal networks are in society, but also in business. Because remember, the background to this matter is a business environment. That you've got this investment company. NTC. I mean, it seems to have had a lot of money in it. It had a lot of investors, maybe going on 2,000 or something we hear. And at some point, they was sitting in it $500 million rand of money of investors' money, apparently. So it's like high stakes. So it is on the face of it, it is a business, but the state seems to think that it was a Ponzi pyramid type entity. But the precursor to the murder that you've just been talking about, Boer van Niekerk, is that there had been ongoing conflict between the owners, the business rescue practitioners, with their lawyer, the lawyer being the guy who was killed, Van Niekerk, and investors. Some of the investors who were wanting to know what's happening with the money, because at some point, one of the accounts of the company was frozen, and there was 80 million in it, and then the matter went to court. And the court directed that the money must be sent back because there was insufficient proof that this was that the money was the result of criminal activity. Now, what we're hearing is that the business rescue practitioner, together with the lawyer, with Van Niekerk, were trying to stall the return of that money into the company. And that led to a lot of bad blood between the owner, represented by Thabo Letupa, and the business rescue practitioners and the lawyer.
Now, in South Africa, it seems that there's a whole nother world. We are just living our lives every day, but there's a whole nother world filled with deep underworld dealings and, as you said, tensions and corruptions as well. But it does seem that at the moment, it seems to be exposed at a very quick rate. So it seems that there's a little bit of progress.
I think it is probably that it is that the criminals are becoming more brazen. Not so much that we're catching more of them or exposing more of them. I think that a lot of these murders are now happening. A long time ago, murders like this would happen, when no one's looking, away from the public spotlight. But if you look at this murder, for example, it happens in the daytime, in the presence of people, in an office, which is a public place. If you look at Klute Murray, the business practitioner person as well, the insolvency person as well, who was killed with his son. That also happened, in broad daylight. So I think what is happening is that because people don't get caught, people don't get prosecuted and punished, the criminals are becoming more brazen. That if I disagree with you, I can just organize for you to be bumped off.
Scary, the world that we live in. Remember that more details are available in the Sunday Times as well. That QR code on the right-hand top corner of your screen. Just open your phone, scan it, and you will get more details there. But for now, let's head to the Western Cape. The worsening tide of violent crime is tearing through communities there, and the township of Mfuleni paints a gloomy picture of this relentless scourge. The police station there ranks third highest in reported murders nationwide, and the crisis shows no signs of easing, leaving residents trapped in fear and despair. Talk to us about this. The Western Cape, things are just not getting better. What do we know?
You know, the tragedy about what is happening in the Western Cape and other places similar is that we are almost at a point where the violence has become normalized and accepted. It's become part of the white noise in South Africa. You know, people go about their lives, they go on holidays. Overseas visitors come in and out of Cape Town. They don't see the, you know. So I think we become inured to what is happening. But we were looking at Mfuleni in Cape Town as a microcosm and as a symbol of what is happening in townships, not just in the Western Cape, but all around the country, whether it's in KZN, whether it's in Gauteng, and, you know, and everywhere else, where there is this deep fear among residents, you know, where people are basically it's a living hell for a lot of residents. You know, they're faced with drug cartels, they are faced with extortion rings, they are faced with gang violence and all of that. You know, and gun violence is prominent in all of these places, drugs and gun violence, and it does not look like the state has got the capacity or the ability or the political will to deal with the issue. But the problem also is that, you know, people are saying, you should, and it's really out of desperation. People are saying, bring in the army, you know, or bring in more police, you know, more boots on the ground, etc. But that will not eliminate the kind of criminality that we're seeing happening, because there is a sociological undertone of young people who are unemployed, who have no hope of being employed, who have never been employed, who have no income. You know, when someone gets into their 30s and they've never worked and they've got no CV, you know, they have no idea what, you know, the gang life becomes very attractive, you know, because the entry to the barrier to entry is very low. They go in there, but also, you know, someone was saying, talking about Cape Town in particular, that part of the problem of why we need to deal with the sociological problems, issues in places like that, is that you've reached a stage where young people who are lured into criminality are no longer afraid of even being sent to jail. So imprisonment is no longer, the law is no longer a deterrent, etc. Why? Because they get arrested, they go into prison, they come out, whether on parole or after serving their sentence, and what do? There's no work for them, there's no schooling, but they have to live.
Yeah, and I like that map that we had on right now, showing the close proximity between Mfuleni, for instance, and then suburbia. It's so close. So what is the difference here, even in terms of service delivery, socio-economic interventions as well? I was in Cape Town just the other day, and literally kilometers. The one moment we're like, this is the best run province in the country. And just kilometers away, you're like, this is bad, no space. It is absolutely terrible. Can all of this just be blamed, and I know we're running out of time here, but can all of this just be blamed on the police? We need another police station. We need the army, as you said, out of desperation. Or is there an aspect of political accountability that should also be taken, because the leaders at the top plays a very big role in setting the culture and the economy of a province? Yeah,
no, that's true. It is about dealing with the economic issues, the issues of employment, etc. But also, in the Western Cape, there is wrangling between province and national as to whether, you know, how far you devolve the powers of policing. You know, whether the Western Cape should get more, you know, more powers to do policing and you know, etc. And for some reason, national and province don't seem to be able to sit down and talk about this very, very serious problem that is tearing those communities apart.
Yeah, and it is very serious. Well, we still have a lot to unpack. We're going to take a very short break here on The Brief. When we return, we're going to talk about the fact that while taps are running dry and communities struggle with chronic water shortages, you see them protesting for water here on eNCA. Listen to this. Members of the country's water boards are cashing in. That conversation on the other side of the break. Welcome back. You're watching The Brief on eNCA. Now, while taps run dry and communities struggle with chronic water shortages, members of the country's water boards are cashing in. Some are pocketing staggering fees of up to 100,000 rand per meeting. As the country battles an escalating water crisis, these revelations expose a system where those meant to safeguard the nation's water resources may be draining them instead. Still with me in studio, Sunday Times Deputy Editor Mike Siluma, as we unpack this. Very, very shocking when we look. Some of these board members, they're getting more than R1 million for attending something like 10, 14 meetings.
Oh, yeah.
What did we find?
And this story comes out of a question that was asked in Parliament by the MKP's Visvin Reddy. And then, the Minister of Sanitation and Water, Pemi Majodina, then responded, and she gave this long report on who's earning what, and we were blown away by what we saw in that report. We were just amazed by the fees that were being paid per meeting to a lot of these boards, of these members. That, top of the list, is the Umgeni chairperson, who earned in the last year, in the last financial, he earned 1.5 million for 14 meetings now. Sure. There are very few companies that would pay someone 1.5 million rand to attend 14 meetings. This is 14 meetings in a year. And then it goes, some are getting 80,000 per meeting, some are getting 100,000 per meeting. Yeah. But the problem with this is that it does not look like, it looks like that the country does not have enough money to go around, but actually where there is money, there's so much autonomy for boards, for government departments to pay people whatever they want to pay them. There isn't a standardized kind of way or oversight that regulates how much people on these boards are being paid. And there's a lot of wastage of money. Yeah, and if you look at some of those boards, people are struggling with water in that area. Yeah, it's virtually in all the areas, there are water issues of one kind or another.
I find this interesting. During Minister Patricia de Lille's appearance in Parliament, some of those board members, they were talking about the money that they being paid per meeting. And if my memory serves me correctly, they were getting something like just over 2,000 Rand, for instance, per meeting. And then already they were saying that is nothing in comparison to what other board members or members of boards are getting to attend meetings. Now it makes sense, right?
But in this case, it is not just remuneration for attending a board. I mean, actually, which is a whole other issue as to what do they do in that meeting. What do they deliver? By simply because really being on a board is not just about being present and falling asleep while everyone is reading the minutes. They also, in addition to the remuneration for attendance, they are able to pay to claim for travel, accommodation, and there are things which is something called meets and greets with people. They claim for that. So they claim for virtually everything that remotely relates to their membership of those boards.
What are officials saying? What are opposition parties saying about this?
Well, there's naturally there is outrage, with about that, about just the wastefulness, that is going on, But I think that the problem is that there is never accountability, with almost every story, that we report on about wrongdoing or the wastage of public funds, etc. The thing is just, let to quietly die down and the people carry on as before.
Absolutely. That's why the role of the media is so important, because as the media, Sunday Times, eNCA, we have the ability to keep those conversations going and put pressure for accountability. I want to shift quickly to, you've introduced a fresh new look this week. Part of the redesign, the well-known lifestyle section has been integrated into the main body of the newspaper, and it will now appear in broadsheet format. Talk to us about it. It's a subtle, you say, but significant change for readers of the long-standing weekend publication. Talk us through it.
No, those who are familiar, with the paper will remember that the lifestyle section was, has all along been a tabloid, pull-out tabloid, going inside the main body, of the paper. So what we have done is to bring it into the newspaper as part of the main body of the newspaper. So its size is going to be bigger. It's going to be the broadsheet size, and what it will do is that it will give us more space to be more creative and innovative in how we present content, whether it is editorial content or advertising content. That it'll give. We'll be able to be more dynamic in how we display all of that. And we will be looking more like this.
Yes.
With where we've got Zing Malo there on the front.
On the front, Zing
so it's got
it's
got more breathing space, more visually inviting, and also we'll be able to put in more in terms of food, in terms of entertainment, in terms of the arts, etc. In the thing. So there'll be more space and more content, that relates to all of that, so people will know, for example, if you, going into getting up on a Sunday morning or what's to do today, Sunday morning, there'll be more information about that.
Absolutely. And if you want more information right now, all you can actually do is scan the QR code and it'll take you right to the website. It's now 8:48. A quick break. When we return, BBK is here. We'll tackle the sports. Well, it was 20 minutes.
You, young man, no worries, no worries.
You're watching The Brief on eNCA, and a big sporting weekend it was for South Africa, which brings us to the sports review. It began on Friday evening with Bafana taking a step closer to qualifying for the FIFA 2026 Soccer World Cup in the Americas. Now, Saturday morning was a bit of a downer for rugby fans. The Springboks losing out to the All Blacks in a mammoth clash in Eden Park. Let's start off with the football and the CAF World Cup qualifiers. So on Tuesday, let's start there. At Orlando Stadium, Zimbabwe host Rwanda, who are still in the running for a qualification spot. That match kicks off at 3 p.m. All right, today. So BBK, there's still plenty to play for here. If Benin win and Nigeria beat South Africa, this group is once again wide open, right? As it stands, South Africa's Bafana have qualified for the World Cup, or have qualification for the World Cup in the Americas in their hands. Talk us through it.
I don't think, wide open exists in my vocabulary.
All right.
Yeah,
why do you say that?
Because I'm so confident, because the way that Hugo Bruce has reinvigorated this Bafana team, he has made us as South Africans to forget, you know, the thing that you use in school to count things, calculators.
Yeah.
We've come from an era where Bafana play matches when you're thinking, have they done enough to go through to the next stage in terms of qualifications, or whether they're in a tournament? Those things are now banned. We're only living it for our children now. We know that we are firmly in charge of Group C. We're on top of the group. We are doing so well. I think that the word lose does not exist in the Bafana vocabulary anymore. I don't care what Zimbabwe do. I don't care what Benin do. I do not care what Nigeria do for this matter.
Us.
This is us. We've got this thing under control. The brilliant play that we saw on Friday, we said our brilliant writer in football, Matlatse Mpatlele, we sent him to Bloemfontein, and to the back page, the most important page of the Sunday Times, he is telling you that Bafana are sitting on the summit, and they've strengthened that by adding the 3 points that came with the goals from Moha Nkotsa, Lyle Foster, as well as Oswin Apolis. That says to us, we are increasing the gap. We are broadening the daylight between us and whoever is number two. You know, whoever is down there is so low that I can't even see them.
You have a lot of confidence in Bafana.
I am confident simply because these players that Hugo Bruce has been able to select have been able to raise their hands. Let me tell you something. There was no Tembazwana here. There was no Maswangani in this team. There was no CBC in this team. There was no Pesitawi here. But no problem, because you've got Mbule coming in, is raising his hand. You've got the broad base of Bafana, the pool being brought in by Bruce, giving players that are showing good performances with their clubs in the PSL. It's also credit, you know, to the PSL that you've got a team that is mainly based of locally based players, not players playing in Europe. And you saw what they did in Ivory Coast. They've already qualified for the AFCON that's going to be in Morocco in December and January. We're certainly going to be in Canada, Mexico, and in the land of that arrangement. And we're going to definitely make sure that for the first time, we qualify for the World Cup, because 2010 in my book was great as an event that we hosted, but the team did not qualify. We last qualified for the World Cup way back in 2002.
And as South Africans, we need this, right? It's not just about the players, it's not just about the game, but what it means for us as South Africa.
Most definitely, and Matlatse does, you know, outline it in the piece that we have on the back page of the Sunday Times, the importance of the fact that, one, we play against Nigeria. You know that is a blockbuster. It is as big in football as the one that we're going to talk about is in rugby with the Springboks and the All Blacks. What happens between us and Nigeria on a Tuesday night, hopefully, if we don't perform well, it should be a draw. But nobody wants to lose to Nigeria.
No.
But even then, we still have 2 more matches to play to complete this World Cup qualifying process. We're going to be playing against Rwanda, and we're going to be playing against Zimbabwe. Rwanda coming here. Zimbabwe, we're playing them away, but we're playing them here at home, because their home ground is like Lesotho here in South Africa. They don't have the facilities that are good enough to be able to host these matches, which is why it was important also in the Sunday Times, if you read last week, we were in Kenya, the work that Patrice Motsepe is doing in trying to make sure that all the countries are able to play their home matches in their home countries. So the turnaround that is doing with the CAF and making sure that the money is coming in and the riches that are going to come from the 1 billion tender that has been able to put out will assist all of these nations to be able to have world-class infrastructure infrastructure so that they can be able to host CAF as well as FIFA international matches.
BBK, you spoke about the rugby now, and I must say I'm a little bit nauseous this morning, just a little bit nauseous still. The All Blacks extended their unbeaten run at Eden Park to 51 matches with, as we saw, a very hard-fought win against the Springboks. Your thoughts around that?
When it comes to blockbusters in matches in sporting codes across, there's no one that's as big as this one. The Springboks and the All Blacks are always going to be explosive. Going to Eden Park was always going to be a tough ask for us. We were going there as the defending champions of the Rugby Championship. We're going there as the double World Cup champions. But in terms of us befitting those titles in the performance that we displayed yesterday morning, we were too far away from it, especially in the first 15 minutes. You know, Rassi these days uses choice words that I cannot repeat on national television to describe the poor performances that is seen from the Springboks. He used a very strong term. We did the game against the Australians at Ellis Park. So yesterday, when you're looking at the Springboks, the breakdown, it has not been kicking this whole season. The line-out, we have been terribly poor. Do you need this? Yes, we do, because these are the wake-up calls that you need in order for us to be able to say, we just not have to show up and we know that we've won the game. We still have to do the work. We still have to remember that there is a way that we got to the level of being the world champions, and the kind of performances that we showed in the one game against Italy, in the one game against Australia, and also yesterday, it is not the stuff that you want. But I would rather that happens now. So that by the time we get to Australia in the 2027 World Cup, we're going to be able then to say we are going for a push that is going to take us to a hat-trick of World Cup winning.
Look, it was going to be difficult to beat the All Blacks in Eden Park yesterday in general, but the world champions, we still have another chance next week in the Kiwi capital, Wellington, right? We still have a chance.
We have a chance to come back. We have a chance to bounce back. And what has happened with Italy is that we bounce back after a poor performance. With Australia, it's the same thing. We bounce back after a poor performance. And if you look, you know, at this Rugby Championship table, it is telling you that New Zealand, you know, are dominant. They are on 10 points. We are there on 5, tied with Argentina with bottom. And you know, going into yesterday's match, we needed to be very careful and have our wits about us because the All Blacks were played out of the pitch by Argentina, you know, and also they needed to come back and bounce. And that Sevilla guy getting his 100 cap in his backyard, and that final tackle that he made, that is the one that stopped us from getting a try, which if there was a conversion, we could have just won it by. Remember how we won the World Cup? Quarter final, 1 point. Semi-final, 1 point. And the final, 1 point. And then they were worried about the Groenkant.
Luister, the thing is this, hulle weet nog altyd nie wat ons still, they still
just
RSA.
And also Matlatin Patlele tells you a story about Mohaung Kotsa, the rise and rise of Mohaung Kotsa. This is a guy not long ago was playing in the District Development Challenge, the reserve league of the PSL. He gets promotion to the Orlando Pirates first team. He plays one season and he does well for Orlando Pirates. Right now he's playing in the Saudi Arabia Pro League. A lot of people are saying, he's doing it for the money. Find out in more detail the brilliant writing of Matlatin Patlele telling you exactly what the story is all about.
That's in the Sunday Times on today, and that QR code at the top. Thank you so much for watching The Brief, a collaboration between eNCA and Sunday Times. Kendall is up next with Newsday. Stay tuned to eNCA. Have a blessed Sunday. God bless Africa.